as I cover ancient Rome in this section, I'm going to kind of browse over many parts that would maybe seem important. I feel that, in Western Civ, there's a lot of exposure to ancient Rome, and you get a lot more, actually Greece and Rome, in even in public schools, middle school to high school. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about Roman religion at the end, but I should just cover some of the important backgrounds of things and regarding Rome. So, which is also kind of discussed in the crash course video that I have posted. Essentially, every place starts with a myth, and that's something to always remember. A legend, a myth, some sort of supernatural story. We have the story of Romulus and Remus, 8th century legend, that's in BCE, where two twins by the war god Mars with the daughter of a local king gets together, puts into a basket that was then placed in the Tiber River. Does that sound familiar, that theme, that motif? Rescued by a she-wolf and eventually raised by shepherds, Romulus kills his brother and flees. And on the banks of the river Tiber, he founds a village that would become Rome. So this is the legendary aspect of the birth of Rome, right? And it's a very interesting one, and it has similarities between some of the motifs that we see in Mesopotamia and somewhat, with Moses and being put down a river in a basket. Something about that, and then raised by shepherds, or I don't know. It's a theme that comes up quite often. The first, at first it was ruled by Etruscans, and the Rome revolted and expelled them, and this was celebrated for centuries as the end of tyranny, and we get a birth of the Roman Republic. Here's I just thought I'd put this picture of this Etruscan funeral art, because it's very touching, and I just think the ancient world, look, we don't think of, I don't know, I just found that to be kind of like, aw. Sorry, anyways. Okay, so Italy in 600 BCE, and so maps are always good. Maps are good. We see there's Greeks, Etruscans, Carthaginians from Carthage there, which we'll be discussing soon. So you have the Roman Republic in the 6th century that lasts all the way to 27 BCE. Good amount of time, right? And you have the Senate and the people of Rome. All adult male citizens voted for representatives, but not issues, right? So you could vote somebody that you like and hope that they're going to pick the issues that you choose. And then you have the chief institution was the Senate, and this was a society based on laws even rulers subject to. Very significant, and obviously in terms of Western culture, it's clear as day how the language that's being used, it's really, really, really reminiscent. And the idea of having laws even being something that one must listen to. In a certain sense, when I talk about Judaism and the other passage in the Talmud that God can't even nullify his own law, which sounds somewhat blasphemous to non-Jewish practitioners of monotheistic faiths. In a certain sense, I wonder if it's actually kind of like promoting the same idea that, if we have a sense of justice, a law that can be arbitrarily broken even by somebody in power, is that really a fair law? It's something that, so that's a side note, but anyways, it's an interesting thing that I thought I would just try to tie in. But so we have this framework here. So the Roman Republic, it had the concept of natural law. And this was a Roman vision of legal principles applicable to all societies regardless of time and circumstances. really kind of the idea of universal human rights. And it's a little controversial, right? Uh, uh, um, how do you know what's applicable to all societies and circumstances? And should that be true? Is that true? How would you prove that? How do we prove that now? You're right. That's perplexing. But they were able to set up the republic, a system that still had a kind of conflict, which is you had the commoners and the aristocrats. And political struggle between people with different sets of interests is always going to be the case. That's something that Karl Marx pointed out, whether you agree with him or not on his other things. I think he had something important to say in terms of conflict of interest between different classes. And you see that theme pop up. And so here we have the plebeians, the commoners going on strike, and making their influence felt. Okay. So the idea was is if there's laws that are just memorized, and you have elites in power, and sorry to clarify that you had these memorized laws, these oral laws, how does anybody know if that person is really saying something that comes from the law or not? So the idea of the 12 tables, of putting something down in writing, not only helps preserve it, but it helps kind of document something. You want to make a case, you got a reference point, right? And so in 450 BCE, patricians forced them to publish having these laws actually written, visible for the public. You could have a debate and know if something is legal or not legal. But some of these laws also, just to point out, don't fit a lot of modern standards, at least now. One was a dreadfully deformed child shall be quickly killed. So there was when Hitler annihilated many handicapped people in the Third Reich. There was other regimes that did that, such as the Roman regime, the Republic did that. In terms of not wanting to keep a sick child. Another law is the penalty shall be capital for a judge or arbiter legally appointed who has been found guilty of receiving a bribe for giving a decision. An attempt to preserve a lack of corruption. Excuse me. Kind of cold or allergies, one or the other. Anyhow, according to Roman historian Livy, they sent an embassy to Greece to study the legislative system of Athens. So then there's still that heavily influenced by the Greeks on the Romans. Many modern scholars believe the Roman assembly most likely visited Greek cities of southern Italy. So, that legacy of democracy and those ideas are going to be influential on Rome, of course, as a model. But what really made the presence of Rome felt in the world was the Roman army. And no society matched this degree of militarization before World War I. And we're talking about dividing them in legions, subdivided, and every male had to serve as long as needed. And to serve in office had to be in the military at least 10 years. So this is a very heavily militarized society. We see a republic with an evolution of an idea that deals with a more democratic set of principles, and also a very warlike, militaristic society, where war is celebrated, it is valorized, okay, and it's made very effectual as well. Because the Roman army is going to be the model for a very long time, and they're going to make their presence felt for a very long time. I will end this first lecture here.